Most families wait until a health crisis or sudden decline to have conversations about caregiving, long-term care, or financial planning. By then, emotions run high, options are limited, and the experience can be overwhelming. But it doesn't have to be that way. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies behind living a longer, healthier, and more purposeful life. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, an exercise physiologist with a passion for making science simple and life better as we age. My guest is Annalee Kruger, founder of CareGiving Incorporated, a global consultancy that develops customized aging strategies for families. Over the past 28 years, Annalee has helped more than 20,000 families navigate the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges of caregiving, dementia, and long-term caregiving. She is also the co-founder of Plan for Life, home of the Certified Elder Planning Specialist Program, and the creator of the Aging Strategy Coaching Academy, training professionals to better serve the senior care field. Annalee is the author of The Invisible Patient, The Emotional, Financial, and Physical Toll on Family Caregivers, and her mission is to guide families through difficult transitions with clarity, compassion, and proactive solutions. We'll discuss why planning ahead is essential for aging well, how caregivers can be better supported, and how families and workplaces alike can prepare for the realities of aging. Annalee, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to becoming an advocate for caregivers and aging adults.
Great. And thank you, Jeff, for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate helping kind of spread the message about aging well and how to do that. So my background is I was a social worker, admissions director, and ultimately executive director in CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities that have from independent living all the way down to skilled nursing and skilled rehab. And I did that for over 28 years. And every single day I had families in my office, usually the adult kids, because mom fell, she broke her hip. She's the caregiver to dad who has dementia. At the time, though, in the 90s and the early 2000s, families all lived down the street from each other, or at least in the same zip code and certainly in the same time zone. And so they could seemingly work together a little bit more as a team because they were still at that time in our lives getting together for Sunday after church dinner and stuff like that as a family. But the problem was always the same. There was a medical crisis. Kids get thrust into having to make big decisions very quickly for one, if not two parents. And then they would come into the care community to take the tour because the hospital says, here's a list of facilities, go find one by noon tomorrow because we're going to discharge your mother. And the kids were like, she just got there like 3 days ago. We don't even know what's wrong with her yet. And so, because that's how it is in the hospital system. And so the kids were just so blindsided. And then just stepping into the building to take the tour, when you don't hang out in a skilled rehab or a memory care unit every day, it's pretty daunting. And so when you step into just that environment, you're like, oh my gosh, because you're seeing really sick, frail, elderly people that sometimes are behaving in a way that people don't understand because they have dementia, right? And so the kids didn't know what questions to ask, what to look for. And when I would ask them, what do your parents have in order? Do they have living will, power of attorney? Do they have their DNR, their do not resuscitate, or are they a full code? All of that information that people need to know, the answers were always, I don't know. Our family never talks about stuff like that. But then they were like, where's the camera? This many percentage of adult kids who would say, Annalee, we tried to get this information from mom and dad because we could see the writing on the wall. They're not getting any younger. They're not any more, they're not more mobile. They're not more cognizant. But every time we tried to get this information, they gave us so much pushback that we quit trying. They also, when they would do the tour, I would tour the whole campus, all of the different care levels. And so they had no idea what the difference was between assisted living and skilled rehab. They would say those same words all in the same sentence as if they're the same type of care. Or most of them assumed that Medicare would pay for all of their parents' care. And so there's just a lot of misunderstanding and assumptions that families have. And so in 2011, I decided to leave corporate America to start my own consultancy called Care Right Incorporated to solve for the problems that I already encountered with families for the first 28 years of my career, with families not talking about the what whens, not having any kind of aging plan, and that's what I do with families, and certainly not understanding dementia. They'll say, well, I don't understand how dad could be the bank president for 40 years, but he doesn't know how to set up his medications, or he keeps forgetting to go to his doctor's appointments. So there's just so much confusion and misunderstanding of really this whole aging and family caregiving and dementia progression and how to navigate senior care and senior care costs. So that's why I started Care Right in 2011. I went virtual right away. Back then, we only had Skype. And I did that because by then the market changed and families just don't live near each other. And also personally, I needed to create a business that served my family and my lifestyle, because at that point, my mom had early onset dementia. And I knew that I wanted to be actively involved in my own aging parents' journey. And so that way I could be wherever I needed to be, as long as I had the internet connection. And I could help these families with their family meetings and understand what their care options are based on what they can afford.
So you've worked with more than 20,000 families over the last 3 decades.
Yep.
What's the most common mistake families make when it comes to planning for aging and caregiving?
They don't plan. They're like, Mom and Dad are fine. And I'm like, I say this literally every day. Mom and Dad are fine. And I'm like, they are for right now, but what about when they aren't? And so biggest mistakes are denial and assuming that they have more time to figure out what to do with Mom and Dad. And I say that it's kind of up to us kids, because most elder, like, who calls me for their free consult and their kind of learn more about Care Right services? It is always the adult kids because they have become Mom and Dad's assisted living. They're setting up medications. They're coordinating doctor's appointments. They're stepping away from their business for weeks or months at a time every time Mom falls and Dad needs care. Mom's in the hospital. What are we supposed to do? And so it's just total chaos for most of these families. And that's the biggest, that's one of the biggest obstacles or mistakes families make, is thinking they have more time to figure out what to do. You do until you don't. And then not truly realizing the full impact of what it's like to get thrust into caregiving and the emotional and physical and financial and relationship toll that truly takes when you don't have an aging plan.
So why do you think most people avoid these conversations until crisis hits them?
Because they're uncomfortable. Nobody wants to talk about end of life, right? But that's all I've ever done, because our grandparents lived with us on the farm in Iowa, because that's what you did back then in the 70s. And so, because back in the 70s, the options were our grandparents failed and died at home, or they moved in with their kids, which is what both of my sets did. They moved in with us on the farm, or they went to a nursing home because there wasn't any other care options at that time. So people don't seemingly want to talk about the what whens of aging because of denial, ignorance. They think that they have more time. They think that their parents are doing better than they really are at home. That's why every Thanksgiving, Christmas, any holidays, I mean, my phone rings off the hook already because I don't have a seasonal business, but I can promise you that I always can tell when the adult kids start visiting their aging parents at the holidays, because they'll call me and they're like, oh my gosh, Annalee, Dad didn't even recognize me, and he always sounds fine on the phone when I call him throughout the year, or Mom's lost 30 pounds from when I saw her last year, or we got there and the house smelled like a nursing home, or they had 6 months of mail piled up and we just didn't know that they were having these challenges. So there's a lot of that happens, and that's when the kids get caught off guard and they don't know where to turn. And so thankfully, just through word of mouth. And then I do a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of podcasts. I wrote the book, The Invisible Patient, the emotional, financial, physical toll on family caregivers. So my name is out there. And so people reach out to me because they're like, we don't know what to do, but we know that they're not safe and we're concerned about that.
Yeah, my family has been pretty fortunate. I have divorced parents, so there was like 2 sets of situations there. My mom probably didn't do quite as well, but I think as children, we were able to recognize some of the problems coming up ahead of time. Like, for example, I think I diagnosed my stepfather, my mom's husband, with Parkinson's before the doctor did, which blew me away. They came for a visit and they were walking up the driveway and I'm like, oh my God, he's showing Parkinson's. And we talked to my mom about it, and she may have been in a bit of denial, but it appeared like the doctor had not even addressed it. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. How is that possible? It's so obvious. But we were able to kind of see some of the things happening. There were a few things with my mother that we just, I was aware that she wasn't getting enough to eat. And so, I'm the farthest away. And, I was sending her, protein drinks to make sure she's getting stuff down. And she actually had kind of a blockage in her esophageal sphincter so that the food really wasn't getting into her stomach. And she would throw some of it up, some would get down there. And I think we just weren't as aware as we should have been right off the bat. Fortunately, getting her liquid drinks kind of helped some. So in her situation, it didn't go quite as well. My wife's family, like we mentioned before we started recording, are in Florida. They years ago moved into a continued care facility, and they had kind of that transition well planned. And so when my father-in-law got Parkinson's and started to show signs of dementia, they were immediately able to move him into a care. And I think on my wife's side, they tend to look at the worst case scenarios with my mother-in-law. They always think she's worse than she is. And maybe I'm the more optimistic, but I kind of see, for a 94-year-old, she's doing pretty darn good. And on my dad's side, they had a good progression as well. They retired to Arizona. They had not really a retirement community home, but they had moved into a community where everything was a bit more accessible for them. And then they started to recognize now's the time maybe we need to move toward more continuing care facility. And it wasn't long after they moved that my dad passed away relatively suddenly, and we did not expect it. I mean, he didn't have tremendous health conditions or anything, he just passed in his sleep. But now, for my mother-in-law or my stepmom, she is in a great situation. She's got community, she's in great health, but you never know what's going to happen. And so I do see how the planning can go unaddressed, but it's important to address it. And if the parents aren't addressing it, then we as children need to kind of step in and be the adults there, right?
Well, and it's, here's the thing is and I've asked I ask the same questions all the time with all the families, but the questions that I ask mom and dad, because my client is the whole family, right? So now we're on Zoom because we don't use Skype for like a decade now, but when I ask moms and dads, because my client, again, the whole family is on Zoom, unless there's so much dementia that it just doesn't make sense to have them on a Zoom, or they're in the ICU because, again, the family is in crisis mode. And so when I ask mom and dads, what are your goals as you age? It is always the same two goals. I want to age in place at home, and I don't want to be a burden on my kids. But it is almost always the adult kids calling me because they're like, I love mom and dad, but this is not sustainable for my job, my career, my marriage. My spouse is like, you're not present for our own kids and our own marriage, and you don't have energy. And then the relationship strained with the siblings, because they always think, oh, well, of course my siblings are going to pitch in and help out. And that's not always the case. That's why 85% of my week is spent doing family mediation, because not everybody's always on the same page. There's a lot of misalignment. And so when I ask the adult kids, what are your goals for your parents? It's always the same thing. They want them to be safe, happy, have the best quality of life and the best quality of care possible. So the only way to do that is that we build out an actual plan to solve for all of those issues and make sure that there's enough supports, education, guidance, and advocacy and care coordination involved so that everybody can kind of get their life back on track.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you. And now back to the podcast. And so these are all things that we need to be doing a lot earlier in life. And you often talk about the importance of an aging strategy.
Yeah.
What does this look like, and how is it different from, what most people consider when they think of like traditional estate or retirement planning?
Yeah. Yeah. So an aging plan, when I talk about an aging plan, because again, I created a consultancy to solve for all the problems that I saw, for 20 some years in the industry. And so an aging plan is we facilitate the family meetings, find out what's working well, which there isn't a lot working well by the time families come to us because they're in crisis mode. What's not working well, where that's the long laundry list, because those are the pain points that prompted them to call us in the first place and work with us for an aging plan. But then we educate them on dementia. Many of them will say, well, if dad's dementia gets worse, or they can't even say the word dementia, they're like, no, he just has some short-term memory loss. And so it's really educating families about the disease that their loved one actually has. And then also helping them understand, okay, that's great if your goals are to age in place at home, but what about if she can't or your parents can't stay at home? What's that plan B look like? So we do what's called a care matrix. We outline the different care options for home care, adult day care, all of the stay-at-home options and how much they're going to cost. And that way, then we also are like, okay, well, if you can't afford $30,000 a month or more for 24/7 live-in care, because that's what aging in place means, that you stay there until you die. Well, we don't stay independent usually until we die. We need care at some point. And so we also outline 5 to 8 different care communities that at least the client can, on the surface, financially, physically, behaviorally, and cognitively pass the pre-admission assessment for. And that way the families don't have to blindly and randomly waste 3 or 4 days of vacation to tour random facilities to then find out, these have a 5-year waiting list, or this one doesn't have a memory care unit and dad needs memory care, or that the parents don't have the financially qualify because they spent so much money in home care trying to stay at home that now they don't financially qualify to get into a care community. So that's what we talk about with an aging plan. And then because most of our clients don't have any of their grab and go binder stuff together, because again, when I was an employee, I would ask these kids, what do your parents have in order? And they have no idea. So we also do the grab and go binder checklist, accounts, passwords, who are your doctors, what are the medications, your business succession plan. If you have a pet, what's the plan if you go into the hospital, or who's going to take care of your pet. We also do special needs planning, estate. We don't do any of the, like when I say planning, I'm saying that we help them get all these documents together, right? So if they don't have an attorney, then we look in our Rolodex, because I'm old enough, I know what a Rolodex is. For you young whippersnappers listening to this, it's your contact list in your cell phone. Yeah. So then I can pair them with providers that can help them make sure that they get everything buttoned up. And the cool thing is that we're basically doing intergenerational planning, because so many families just think that Medicare or their Social Security check is going to cover all this care costs. But when you're shelling out I have clients paying $70,000 and $80,000 per month. Ooh. With 24/7 home care, because they have 2 aging parents and they need 2 or 3 caregivers for waking hours, or 12 or 14 hours a day, because of they're frail, because they wanted to age in place at home, or they're obese, or they have dementia, and they need 2 caregivers to kind of constantly redirect them so that they can stay at home. So not very many people can afford that. So that's why we're like, okay, what is going to be your aging in place at home, stay at home care budget? So that now that you know how much net worth you have to financially qualify to get into these different care communities, then we can reverse engineer and say, okay, family, you have $75,000 that you can spend towards trying to stay at home, so that then when you realize that you're not able to, or that you can't, or it's not safe, then at least you can qualify to get into these different care communities. But for people who say that they do have a plan in place, when I ask them specifically what that means, they don't have any of their documents in order. They don't have estate plans. They don't have their grab and go, and their parents are not on any kind of waiting lists. And so then when that crisis happens, no one should be surprised that it's going to be very chaotic very quickly. and your parents will end up in whatever care facility has an open bed.
So for families that are feeling overwhelmed by the process, what's the very first step they should take?
Breathe. Because I'm sort of not joking, but just take a deep breath because it is overwhelming. There are so many nuances to this whole aging planning because you've got family relationships, family dynamics. So many of my clients, they're kind of taking care of up to 6 and sometimes 8 elderly loved ones because of blended families and step parents and all that kind of stuff. And it's overwhelming. So really take a big, deep breath. If they have interest in wanting to talk and learn more, they can certainly reach out to me for a free consult. But really, the more that you can work as a family, as a team, to take care of the needs of aging parents, the better. The more that you can be prepared, the more that you can understand the disease that your loved one has, the better equipped you'll be to be able to manage that disease. It seems like, because we do, like I said, we do special needs as well, meaning Ethel and Marvin are in their 90s, but they always had John with Down syndrome, who's now 60, live with them. But now mom and dad are getting sick or demented, and they need to move into care communities. And so it just seems though when I work with parents with special needs kids, those parents know everything about that special needs diagnosis forwards and backwards. But adult kids don't do the same thing when their parent has Parkinson's or frontal lobe dementia or any other kind of disease. They're just like, well, he's just goofy. He's just acting goofy. And I'm like, no, that's called dementia. He's got like his mood is changing, his behavior and personality is changing. So educate yourself.
So in your book, The Invisible Patient, you highlight the toll that caregiving takes on family members. Why are caregivers so often overlooked, and what needs to change to better support them?
That's such a great question. So what needs to change is how we view elderly people. We have to actually understand that they are vulnerable once they enter the senior care industry. They are incredibly vulnerable to the healthcare workers assigned to them. What I mean by that is for us, when we talk about that care matrix, for us to even get 5 to 8 different care communities in the areas that they want us to explore, we have to rule out 10 to 15 to 20 care communities because they've been cited for abuse and neglect. So we can't keep living with our head in the sand about really what's going on in the senior care industry. So family caregivers, the healthcare industry needs to do better. Like I shouldn't even have such a thriving, active business if the healthcare industry was better at actually addressing the needs of these families, their seniors and their aging loved ones and vulnerable adults. There wouldn't need to be businesses like mine to help families navigate senior care and understand the disease process. But like we talked about, you identified Parkinson's before the physician did. The expert, right? Same thing that happens a lot of times in senior care or with healthcare is your loved one will get this like heavy diagnosis of Alzheimer's or whatever it is. And then it's kind of like, well, good luck to you. And so that's our challenge is in healthcare. It seems like they just let these families fall through the cracks. And that's why I have a thriving business, because I take them when they're kind of broken because they're in crisis, and I patch them up and give them a plan and help them understand how to get from point A to point B as safely and healthily as possible.
So what are some strategies families can put in place to reduce conflict and burnout among their caregivers? I
would say one thing, just because before this meeting or before this podcast, I was doing a family mediation. So one thing is how it tends to be, and it was my own situation as well, how it tends to be is like one of the adult kids kind of takes lead and takes charge because they're like, oh, things aren't going well with mom. She's lost weight, or, this is her 4th urinary tract infection, or this is her 5th ER visit in 6 months. Those are red flags you just can't keep ignoring. So that's one thing. Stop ignoring the red flags. But number 2, because the red flags are always there, you just need to know what to look for. And number 2, we'll talk about like if Ethel and Marvin, 80s and 90-year-olds are taking care of each other. Well, if Marvin has dementia, understand this is where families get into a challenge is they don't understand the dementia disease itself. And so they don't understand how overwhelmed and stressful it is for their mother to take care of their father when she's not able to sleep well because she's got to sleep with one ear and one eye open, because what if Marvin gets up and he falls or he wanders out of the house? And so we know that 65% of seniors age 60 and older die because of caregiver burnout, because it was not addressed and they didn't have enough supports in place. So that's another thing, is understand caregiver burnout. It's a real thing. Whether you're 90 years old or you're 50 years old, it's a real thing. And also understanding that when that primary caregiver says, look, I'm tired, or my dad needs more care, or our dad needs more care and doctor's appointments than what I have capacity for, I need your help, to listen and say, what can I do? Like, volunteer to pitch in. What do you need? What would make your life easier? Sometimes they just need to talk and have it be validated and heard. But other times it's like, well, I know you guys don't live locally, but if someone could order her Depends and have Amazon ship them, or order food and have it shipped, that's what we help families do. What do you want to take off your caregiver plate, and what can we outsource to someone else in the family who's willing to step in? And then where do we need to hire a professional to help with other things, like maybe a nurse to set up medications and coordinate care? So those are a lot of different things that families can do. Listen, validate, offer to help. And from a caregiver perspective, I have to say a lot of primary caregivers, we aren't always great at asking for help. So when we do say things like, this is really overwhelming, or I can't step away from my business for another week because then I'm not getting any paid and any income coming in, that should be a cue for those that have some emotional intelligence and empathy to say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much time this is taking for you and the toll it's taking. Here's what I can do to help, and here's what we can do so that we can reduce your stress load.
So you also work with employers. So how does caregiving kind of have an impact on the workplace performance, and how can companies respond to kind of help out?
Caregiving impacts employers in every single way, because it's hard to feel engaged in your job and on your A game and a top producer of whatever it is you're supposed to get done and productive, when on your lunch break you call your mom to be like, hey, did you take your pills? Did you make it to therapy today? Did you get to your doctor's appointment? And then you can't get a hold of mom and you're like, oh my God, did she fall? Did she wander outside? Did she leave the stove on? It's hard to feel engaged and productive in your job, just like in real life, with your own life. It's hard to feel engaged when your mind is elsewhere because you're worried. There's so much angst. So that's one thing, is having more supports and services available to help these employees be successful as a caregiver, but also as an employee. So making sure that they have like an employee assistant program or services like mine that can, do training and aging planning and those types of services for those employees, so that they can be more focused on their job and more able to take that job promotion, instead of saying, I would love to take that job promotion, but that requires more responsibility and I have my hands full with my aging parents and my own family. A lot of these employees are sandwich generation. They're trying to take care of kids and aging parents and multiple aging parents, plus try to hold down a job. That's a tall order. That's a lot.
So you talked about kind of training education with your Plan for Life and your Aging Strategy Coaching Academy programs. You've been equipping financial advisors and professionals with tools that can help better serve aging clients. Why is this professional education so important right now?
Oh, it's so important because most financial planners, they're not trained. If you even look at the CFP training requirements, there is nothing in there about aging, dementia, family caregiving, the human side of financial planning. It's about what products can you sell to make more money off of the patient, off of the client, because it's all about production, right? That's why all their meetings are about top producers. It's so when I started CareRight in 2011, to be honest, I had 6 months of savings and I'm like, okay, well, I better figure out how to start this business and get it up and running. And I was already profitable within the first month, but I started sponsoring the Financial Planners Association in Wisconsin, which is all financial services professionals, mostly CFPs. And so when to sponsor it, it's thousands of dollars because you can't speak to them unless you pay a lot of money. And so it's a pay to play type of scenario. And so I would talk about family caregiving and the length of dementia. Dementia can be a 30-year disease process, and the impact on the assets under management. And so many advisors would say, none of our clients are family caregivers. None of our clients have dementia. They call it diminished capacity. None of our clients are going through any of this stuff that you keep talking about. And I'm like, yes, they are, because all of my clients have a financial advisor and they haven't addressed any of this, talked about the what whens of aging at all in the financial plan. And so it's so important because now, thankfully, fast forward, the industry is starting to wake up because now their clients are saying, look, Paul, Mr. Financial Advisor Paul, I'm a caregiver. Dad has dementia. I keep having to take PTO or FMLA to take care of him, and this isn't sustainable. And so they're starting to get more aware. And so clients are asking their advisors, like, what do you have for a resource for this type of thing? And advisors don't usually have this type of resource because they're not trained in it in the first place. And so that's why I started the Elder Planning Specialist Certificate Program. I co-created that with Bob Mauderstock, one of my business partners for my other company, Plan for Life. And so we train advisors about aging, family caregiving, the impact on the financial plan, why it's important that they need to make sure that their clients have estate documents in order. Their job is to protect the financial portfolio, and all of these things that I deal with Care Right, aging, caregiving, the cost of senior care can derail the financial plan. And honestly, when I ask advisors, how much are you budgeting for 24/7 care at home? They're saying $5,800. Just even yesterday, I was talking to an advisor. I'm like, so where are you guys getting this number? Because hundreds of advisors answer with that same $5,800. And I said, well, in the real world, it's actually roughly $30,000 per month for just one caregiver for 24/7 care. And their eyes just pop out of their head because they're like, oh. So eventually consumers are going to say, wow, Mr. Financial Advisor, how did you not know this? How did you woefully under budget the cost of care for our parents? And it's going to be a mess for the financial advisor. So I built that business to try to solve for advisors and give them the training, education, confidence to start talking about the what whens of aging with their clients and say, look, we have your financial plan in place, but this isn't our area of expertise. And so I'm trying to get them to use a collaborative team approach, just like they refer to a tax specialist, or if they do refer to estate professionals, this is just another tool in their toolbox, another resource to say, look, I can put all the levers in place for your financial plan, but if dad has a stroke and needs 24/7 care, that's going to eat through that portfolio very, very quickly if he needs 24/7 care.
So your own story, including being hit by a bus, I understand, has shaped your approach to your work. So how has your personal experience influenced your mission in aging and caregiving?
So my personal experience, like Care Right was only 1 year old. My business was 1 year old when I got hit by a school bus. I'm an international speaker on aging issues, family caregiver burnout, dementia progression, all of that. And I had just returned from Shenzhen and Beijing, China. This Iowa farm kid, made it through this third world country mostly unscathed. But then I come back and 4 days later, I'm in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I'm helping an 82-year-old gentleman that I just met on the main street in Sheboygan. He's looking all red in his face. I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good at all. So I'm like, should I call 911? And he's like, no, just help me get across the street because my wife is waiting for me in the car. I'm like, okay. So we're on the main street. It's over the noon hour. And we're in the crosswalk where we're supposed to be at the right time because that little green light said that we could go the legs. And all of a sudden he yells, watch out. And the next thing I know, I'm getting myself up off the street. I have a backpack for a purse because I was, traveling and stuff for the week. I was going to be in Sheboygan. So I had my laptop and all that junk in my backpack. And all of a sudden I get up off the street and I'm like, oh my God, why am I having to get up off the street? And so I get up and I start walking towards where I had been. And there's all this broken glass and reflectors. And I'm just like, God, that wasn't there just a minute ago. Like, what happened? And so then I looked up further, and the bus is parked all what we call kittywampus, which is crooked across the street. And I was like, oh my God, I think I just got hit by a school bus. And by then, all these people, all these witnesses ran out of the, Main Street stores, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you got up. And I've never seen anything like this. You flew 15 feet. And I'm just like, yeah, that would explain why I'm not feeling real great. And so she didn't see she blew through the four corner stop is what happened. And she was distracted by the kids on the bus. But because I've spent my whole career working with families in crisis who life was good until that second that it wasn't, when dad fell or that heart attack happened or whatever, I carry my living will, I carry my healthcare power of attorney, and I carry my DNR, my do not resuscitate. So I have that in my work bag and my travel bag. I have it in my glove box. I have it in my grab and go binder, which is right there, grab and go. And so, because I had already spent my whole career dealing with crisis, I was like, I'm not going to put my family in that position of not knowing anything about, what's Annalee's business succession plan? What are her end of life wishes? And so I practice what I preach. And so I pulled out my advanced directives and, my DNR, and thankfully I didn't lose consciousness. And the paramedic was like, we've never had anybody produce their documents in the back, they call the back of the wagon. And I was like, I wish more people did carry those with them. In fact, that's one thing I coach families to do is bring these documents with you, because all the people leaving work, they got T-boned in the intersection and now are in the hospital in the ICU on a vent. They didn't think that was going to happen to them that day either, but it does.
So now it brings us to the question I ask of all my guests. And, we've been talking about caregiving stress and all that kind of stuff. What are you doing personally to age well?
That is such a good question. So for me to personally age well, because I'll admit I've been a hypocrite for a long time, because I'm constantly telling families, self-care, 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 take time away, take the day off, go away for the weekend, do whatever. And I have not done a good job of that. So this last 2 years, I have set boundaries with things and people that I needed to, so that I can step away and do some more self-care, because I too became my typical client. My mom's dementia progressed quickly. My dad had a stroke. This all happened like literally within a few weeks of each other. And you have to make sure that you communicate effectively, and that's what I do with my siblings, and say, look, dad has 17 doctor's appointments this month. I need help. Or this is what he needs. Can you order that from the VA and have it shipped to him, because he lives with me in the winter. And so I'm much better, because that is part of self-care, is delegating. And so I delegate better. Getting more exercise. I can't stress that enough, especially as a consultant behind the computer here 12 hours a day. You got to move more. And so I'm moving more. I bought one of those Fitbit watches and stuff. So those are two things that I do. And I took my first vacation that I hadn't taken in 10 years. I took a vacation last year for 3 days.
That sounds good.
Those are 3 things that I've done, which is a lot, because it's taken me since 2011 to get to get my own life in order from a health perspective. I still have a long ways to go. I got to drop some weight. So that's the plan right now. So
if you could share one piece of advice with families about planning for aging well, what would it be?
One piece of advice would be, if the goal is that you want your parents to be safe and happy and have the best quality of life and the best quality of care possible, we have to put an aging plan in place. If you don't have an aging plan, caregiving will derail every aspect of your life and your emotional, physical, and financial health and relationship health. And it can be prevented if we put an actual strategy or a plan together.
Where can our listeners and viewers connect with you? And where can they find, more importantly, where can they find the book, The Invisible Patient?
Yep. If you want to purchase The Invisible Patient, the actual book, you can go to invisiblepatientbook.com. If you want the hard copy, it looks like this. It's a lonely bench because it's a lonely journey if you don't have a plan and enough supports in place. So if you want the book, you can purchase that at invisiblepatientbook.com. If you want Audible, you can also get it on Amazon. It's just that if you order on Amazon, I don't know who purchased because Amazon doesn't tell you that. So I can't follow up with you and say, hey, do you have any questions? But it's also on Amazon. If you're interested in learning more about an aging plan or an aging strategy, or kind of what can we do at CareRight to help you with any of this aging decision making, you can reach out to me at carerightinc.com, or you can send me an email at carerightinc.com.
Okay, we'll share all those links in the description notes for sure. So looking ahead, what gives you hope about how families, workplaces, and professionals can all come together to make aging more supported and a more purposeful experience?
Oh, this is such a good question because the world is starting to wake up and realize we have an aging nation and that we have a real family caregiver crisis out there. We have families that are much smaller than they've ever been. We have a lot of us solo agers who don't have kids. We're not married. And so the world is starting to wake up and say, hey, what are we going to do? We have an aging nation. We don't have enough healthcare workers because we have smaller families and there's not a lot of incentive sometimes to go into healthcare because the pay is so bad. And so there's hope in that, there's think tanks out there that are trying to do some problem solving to say, we got to get ahead of this now, because I've been doing that since 2011 as well. And then I'm hopeful about the financial services industry because they're starting to wake up as well and say, hey, we have an aging book of business. We're getting questions that we don't know the answers to, and we're uncomfortable even talking about this aging stuff. And so they're starting to wake up and starting to see the value of working with us senior care experts so that everybody wins, the client wins and has the best possible outcomes. So I think it's just been it just took some time. I was too early in 2011. I was too much of a pioneer. And so now finally, since COVID, the world is starting to wake up. Financial planners are starting to wake up and say, hey, we need to learn some things that we didn't know before because our clients are expecting us to know these things and who we can work with together with their clients. So I'm really optimistic about that piece. Where I'm not optimistic, unfortunately, is just the quality of senior care continues to decline. That's why so many of these care communities are cited for abuse and neglect year after year, because we have such a shortage of quality healthcare workers, massive turnover in leadership in these healthcare facilities. When there's no consistent quality leadership, it's the wild, wild west in these care communities. So that's the stuff that keeps me up at night, is how to keep our vulnerable adults safe when they are truly at the mercy of healthcare workers that may or may not be trained or definitely properly not supervised. That's my worry.
So is there anything we forgot to talk about today that you need to address?
I want to say just one thing about care advocacy. Just because you're paying money to healthcare workers, whether it's a care community or home care, you can't just wash your hands of that and say, okay, well, we got care in place, so now I don't have to worry about anything. You still kind of do. Because like I said, a lot of these workers, they're just not properly trained. They might not speak the same language that your loved one does. My own mother was served the wrong diet in the memory care facility, and she choked to death 3 years ago. And so, and I do this for a living, and I was there literally every day advocating for her to just get even basic care, because that's really what that's why so many of these adult kids were just exhausted, because you have to fight to get just basic care. And so learning about how to be a bold care advocate and still doing the best you can, and realizing that even though you're there every day and doing everything in your power to do, you can't be there all of the time. And sometimes things are going to happen. And I guess when those things happen, you have to give yourself grace that you can't prevent every bad outcome from happening. That's one thing I've been still working on.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.
Just keep doing what you're doing and keep aging well.
You as well. Thank you for spreading the message and for all that you do for your aging loved ones as well. And anybody who's in this journey of caregiving, they'll be like, oh yeah, we totally get this. Those of you that are listening that aren't in this journey yet, keep all this in the back of your mind and pull on it when you need to, because it's coming down the pike. We don't get healthier as we age. So we need to just face that with reality and put a plan together.
I would say don't keep it in the back of your mind, keep it in the forefront of your mind and start addressing it now. I mean, we're never too young to start thinking about, the care of our parents and our loved ones. So.
Well, and even ourselves, because I work with clients even much younger than me. They didn't feel well. They went to the hospital and, 33 years old and stage 4 breast cancer, and they have 6 months to live. So no matter how old you are, because that's one of the questions I get all the time. Well, Annalee, this all sounds great, but I'm 50 and I got plenty of time yet. Or what is it? What is that magic age? There is no magic age. At 40 years old, I didn't wake up thinking, I think I'm going to get run over by a school bus, but I did. It can truly happen. So the time is now to start putting a plan in place and make sure no matter how old you are, that you at least get your estate documents in order. You get your grab and go binder stuff put in order. You can just even get that off my website if you just want to start there and work as a team with your family to say, you know what, mom and dad, I'm going to get my estate documents in order. I'm going to start getting my accounts, passwords, all that stuff organized. Let's do this as a family. Each month, we're going to work on a new section of the grab and go. And then eventually in 11, 12 months, you'll have it all done. That's a good first step. Just start even getting your own affairs in order, because that's going to prompt some of these conversations.
So we're never too young to age well.
Never too young to age well. I love that. You should trademark that.
All right. Well, thank you again. And you just have a great rest of your day and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. You have a great day too. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.